Wes, there's Hi Odell, and Ty, and Jim, and Joan, Cynthia.
That's better than using a source for a picture, don't you think?
It's gorgeous.
Well, did you see my first one?
What was the first one?
It was the peninsula of the.
Oh.
You know where that is?
No, where's that?
That's McKinley in Port Angeles.
Oh, that's McKinley?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
Ah.
see it.
I thought it had to be fairly local, but I couldn't place it.
But I feel like this is the reason I'm here, so I better do
Of
that
course.
instead of going to Stack.
That's why we're all here. And Mike,
How are we looking?
Martin's on.
Are we good for a quorum, Debbie?
There's Greg.
1, 2, 3.
Got 1,
Yes, we
2,
are.
3. What happened to Randy? He was there before.
I wondered that too. Where is he?
I'm looking. Just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got a quorum. We got 6. We're good.
Okay.
And the only person who I know will not be on is Mary Ellen.
Do you have any public that you know of with comment?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
Nick is on monitoring that, so he'll let us know. He's upstairs, but he's monitoring.
Okay.
I got a bunch of straws up there if you want one.
Oh,
Do you have a straw? Oh, you don't have a straw.
do you have a straw thing? Oh, you mean, but
Yeah, I do. It works better than that.
Mhm. It does. Start anytime you want. We've got a quorum.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call to order the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency meeting for August 12th. Welcome everyone to our Zoom land again. Let's go ahead and do introductions. Go ahead and go around and just say who you are and where you're from, and we can get it. Everybody will know who's on. This is Jim Cooper, Chair. And I'll go around on my screen so it'll be easier. So Cynthia.
Cynthia Pratt, Deputy Mayor of the City of Lacey.
Joan.
And Vice Chair.
Did you say me?
Yeah, Joan.
Oh, Joan Cathy, City of Tumwater.
Ty.
I'm Insert, representing Thurston County.
Greg.
Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County.
Wes.
Wes Cormier, Grace Harbor County.
Okay, and I only see the videos. So people who don't have video, let me see if I can make that show up.
See anybody else?
Yeah, anyone else on the board? Okay, and then let's hear from our council.
Jeff Myers.
Mike Throgmorton.
Okay, and our staff, starting with Fran.
Fran McNair, ORCAA.
Debbie Moody, ORCAA.
Lynn Harding, ORCAA.
Good morning, Mark Gooden, ORCAA.
Odell,
Odell Hadley, ORCAA.
and then Dan.
Dan Nelson.
Okay, is that everyone?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so that takes us to an approval of our agenda, and I just want to throw out one adjustment before we get a motion, and that's we'd like to move the director's report item 2, which is the engineering program update, forward in the agenda so that it falls right after item number 5, the consent agenda. Mark has an appointment he needs to get to, so we want to help him out and do that a little bit earlier in the meeting. So if everyone's okay with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that Cynthia Pratt, I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or amendment? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Randy just joined.
Welcome, Randy.
Yep, and I was an aye.
Got you. Okay, so we have an agenda. That takes us to our chair's report, and I think the only thing today is we'll hear from Cynthia as a report from the Finance Committee meeting earlier this morning.
So we went over our August, what we have so far, and everything seems in order. It's amazing. We're actually have a little bit more revenue than expected based on the fact people are still doing construction and stuff during this time. We had a net income of $62,668 for, that was the net after the expenditures. We had a, let me see what else. We need to do an amendment to the wood stove program to include others, I believe. And then I'm trying to think. Oh, we had a less general fund contingency of about approximately $1 million. And that's what I caught. Is there anything else that I missed, Lynn?
I think Lynn will go through that right in her report.
Yes.
Okay.
But everything's on schedule, it seems like, and we're slightly ahead right now. We'll see, because again, like all of us know, it's a little unpredictable.
And then just for clarification, that's the year end that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Fiscal year 2020.
Yes.
Any questions or comments? Okay, that takes us to public comment. Is there any? Doesn't look like it to me. Okay, so then that'll take us to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions, comments, or polls? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I have Wes and then Greg with the second. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And that takes us to our new item 6, which is an engineering report, engineering program update from Mark Gooden. Mark.
Good morning. My report will be brief unless you have questions on any of these cases, but I'll direct you to the industrial/commercial air permits tab. It's blue and gray, and that'll show you all the permit applications in the pipeline. There's just a few here that I wanted to point out. Starting on page 1, I'd like to point out a Census Specialty Chemicals. They're located in Alma, and a Census is one of the facilities that's a major facility in our jurisdiction. They've applied to become a minor facility in our jurisdiction, and they have to do that through a formal permitting action whereby we impose limitations on their emissions to keep them minor, a minor source. So the big deal with the Census is that they soon will switch from major to minor. That permit application has been processed by ORCAA, and now my understanding is that the company is now reviewing the permit that we will issue that'll effectively change them from a major to a minor source. A Census is a pretty big, it is one of the bigger chemical plants in our jurisdiction, but they're just hidden there. In Alma, you barely know anything's happening there, but it's a pretty complicated, sophisticated facility. There's a lot of safety precautions because they have a lot of things that are potentially dangerous there, things that could explode. And we're fine with them switching from a major to a minor status. They'll get the same level of regulation that they did. They just get out of the air operating permit, the major source program. They'll pay a little bit lesser fee. And so that's a story on them.
So what kind of, excuse me, what kind of chemicals do they make?
They make sodium borohydride and other chemicals that are used primarily for cleaning and in the pulp and paper industry.
Okay.
So Jennifer DeMay is the engineer who's in charge of that particular facility, and maybe at some point in time she could give an overview of what they do. But it's pretty sophisticated. There's a lot of safety precautions before we can go on site, and the chemicals that they come out with are primarily used in other industrial facilities, primarily pulp and paper.
Okay. Thank you.
Is this the old Dow chemical?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Huh.
it was Dow.
They changed their name so many
It
times
was
from
Dow.
Robin Haas to
Right.
Yep.
Morton International.
It's been Dow too.
It's been down?
Yeah.
Huh, well, there's so many times they've changed their name, I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'd like to direct you to page 3 of 4. There's a whole string of Sierra Pacific Industries applications there. One is for an AOP, an air operating permit. That's on hold, primarily because we're working through their construction permits. And I just want to point out this one because Sierra Pacific Industries is a lumber mill. It's located in Grays Harbor. They produce kiln dried lumber and green lumber. They're proposing to replace a couple of their lumber dry kilns and increase their capacity. And we're working with Sierra Pacific, and in this case, the Department of Ecology has some say-so regarding a special permit called a Prevention of Significant Deterioration permit that only they have jurisdiction over. So the Department of Ecology is needing to review this particular case to determine whether or not they trigger this PSD, Prevention of Significant Deterioration permit. I'm only mentioning this because I think this might be a case that either goes to public notice or comment or needs some board attention in the future. And so the message today is that they've got an application in to increase their capacity and replace their dry kilns. We're working with them, and the Department of Ecology is involved. If you have questions or that you want to ask directly on this case, feel free to give me a call, and I'll try to answer them. And then on the same page, Silver Springs Organics. This is a compost facility in Thurston County. They're our largest compost facility, and they want to increase their capacity. And they have an application in. We've had 2 data requests, and they're still working on getting us the data that we need to be able to process this application. But essentially, they're wanting to increase the throughput through that facility. We have standing odor complaints that we've been dealing with. And so we're taking a real close look at this case. This one will likely go to a 30-day formal public notice and comment period. And that's it, except that from a permitting standpoint, we haven't seen much of a downturn in permit applications or goings on throughout our jurisdiction at all. We do have a couple of facilities that have curtailed their operations. McKinley Paper in Port Angeles, they're only operating one of their paper machines, and so they're not fully operational, but they expect to be by October. And then Westport Shipyard, Westport LLC out in Westport, they build yachts. They were temporarily shut down, but they're on. They're slowly building back up their workforce to continue construction again. So that's my report for today. If you got any questions, either now or during the month, when you take a look at this list, feel free to give me a call.
Jim, could I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Joan.
I'd just like to know about the Silver Springs. If they already have complaints against them, odor complaints, would we go ahead and still consider an expansion so they could make more odor?
Well, we still have to consider it, and hopefully that they will have precautions to prevent odors or keep them at their current level or less. Those odor complaints are still under investigation. So there's a lot going on out there, and it just from Robert probably has a lot more to say regarding those odor complaints, but from my standpoint, I need to take each and every application and take a look at it from its merits and send it through the public notice and comment period. If their proposal does not include reasonably available techniques and controls for controlling odors, then that's grounds for either denying it or telling them to go back to the drawing board and to implement more odor controls.
Mark, does their facility have that capacity, or are they expanding the facility?
They're okay, and that's a difficult thing with compost facilities because they've got their square footage is not increasing yet. They can increase a couple of feet on their big area where they're composting, or in this case, they're proposing to go from windrows to one big cookie sheet, if you can envision that. So they could do essentially more composting by going from the windrows to one big flat cookie sheet of compost material. So we're being very cautious with this one. This one will go through a 30-day public notice and comment.
Sorry, Joan, I stepped on your toes.
Well, this is just an ongoing thing with them, ongoing, we've heard about it for years. And Jim, we've talked about it at SWAC, and sometimes you can't figure out if they just don't intend to go by the rules or if they really are working on things. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be cautious about it and look over everything, because it just seems like if they get a new permit or expansion or something without cleaning up what they're already on the books responsible for, it doesn't seem quite right. So anyway, that's
So
my
just
Mark?
a comment on that. And, for a number of years ago, we had huge complaints, and so they shut down and they rebuilt their system more like Hidden Valley or Purdy, more like the Pierce County system, you know, and so then for a number of years now, we really haven't had much way of complaints. And so we got complaints this year, and the timing actually is kind of good, because if you don't get complaints, then you think, well, everything is just cool. But when you get complaints, it not only makes you review the permit from the technical perspective, but then you look at it again to say, okay, now we're having some more complaints with the existing system. And so I think timing is good on that, because they then have to incorporate or figure out what's causing the problems now before they make changes for the future. So the timing, I think, kind of works out.
So I have Jeff and then Ty.
Yeah, my question was, are they changing the material that they're proposing to compost?
No.
I know at Cedar Grove up in Marysville and Everett, that was an issue. Or is it just an increase in the volume?
An increase in the volume thus far, Jeff. No new materials like biosolids or anything like that. Their current permit's got a lot of specificity in precluding certain materials and requiring them to come to us if they want to compost anything that's different than what they came in the door with originally.
They are so much better than Cedar Grove. I dealt with Cedar Grove when I was on the Puget Sound Clean Air Board in the 90s, and they're still having problems today.
Ty?
My question goes back to the first item and the major versus minor source, and just trying to understand why would you be in one versus the other? Are they scaling back what they're doing, or how is it that they're qualifying for minor if they were major before?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a complicated answer. They're major for methanol, and they're okay. Determining major is based on potential to emit. So we take a look at how much can they emit under their physical design and regulatory constraints. By that perspective, they are major. However, over the last, I think since they've been keeping records, their actual emissions have been way below their potential. See, because with a big chemical plant like that, like them, it's difficult to determine what their exact potential is. So you take a lot of conservative assumptions. So their potential to emit that we've got documented is way up here and is in the major source realm. Their actual emissions over many years has been in the minor source realm. And we actually have seen the writing on the wall here for them for over 10 years. They've said, oh, you know, we were thinking about getting out of the program because we can maintain our actual emissions below the 100 tons per year major source threshold. Well, they're finally getting to it. And what enables them to do that, because their potential is way up here, is a regulatory limit that restrains their emissions to the minor source level. So it requires, and this is all per EPA policy and guidance, it requires a federally enforceable limitation on emissions, which we can issue. ORCAA can issue. The permits we issue are federally enforceable. So we just got to now go through that process, establish a permit that sets these limits that are minor.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Good question.
All right.
Okay, so I was just curious if you can give us a little bit of the rundown on the change at the Capitol campus or the new permit. It's unclear.
Oh, okay, yeah, certainly. That one's a complicated one. For years, we've regulated the Capitol campus and the various buildings individually. There's a steam plant out there. There's buildings with emergency engines that cumulatively emit a lot, but we consider them all separately. And we took a look at EPA guidance, revisited EPA guidance, consulted with EPA and various other agencies who have capital campuses within their jurisdiction. And we determined that really the way that they should be regulated and the way that they should be considered is the entire capital campus considered as a single source. When they're considered a single source and you combine all the boilers and engines, their potential to emit is above that major source threshold, so it puts them into the major source realm, and therefore they need an air operating permit. However, just like with the census, they could take a federally enforceable limit to cap their potential emissions in the minor source realm. Okay, so what the sequence of events was, we came to the conclusion with EPA and Department of Ecology that the capital campus should be regulated as a single source. We then worked with them to get an application to set up a comprehensive permit that will keep them as a minor source. And that's what we're going through right now, is to get that permit in place so that they can be considered a minor source.
Okay. And then is that reevaluated anytime they add a source within that big source? So like if they put in a new building with a new generator, you reevaluate the whole permit?
Yes, we'll reevaluate not only what they're adding, but then whether or not the permit that we issue here, we call it a synthetic minor permit, whether or not that still is valid. Okay.
Thanks. That's really helpful. I'm just glad they have to follow somebody's rules. They don't ever have to follow anyone's rules there. So. Any other questions for Mark? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hopefully you're able to get to your appointment on time.
Yep.
Okay, so the next item is under new item 7, bylaws amendment. So I'm guessing we're going to go to Jeff to tell us about his memo. You're muted, Jeff.
Jeff, you're on mute.
Mute doesn't work. I was asked to evaluate the existing bylaws language and see whether or not we needed some additional language, particularly in light of the COVID-19 emergency and the governor's restrictions. I think the language that we have is sufficient to give the board the flexibility to address the 50% limitation. Right now, the language limits phone attendance, and that would include virtual attendance, to 50% of the meetings unless there are extenuating circumstances. I think the governor's proclamation, which requires us to have virtual meetings, supersedes the limitation there and provides extenuating circumstances as a matter of law. And I think that the ability to declare extenuating circumstances lies with the board, so that you can address that on a board-wide basis if you feel like virtual meetings should continue, or if individuals have needs that they need to quarantine themselves or have some sort of specific need to attend remotely, that is not just something of convenience. The 50% limitation still does encourage people to come to physical meetings when that is allowed and possible. But I don't think that you need to change the language of your bylaws in order to address the COVID-19 situation. So that's what the memo was getting at.
Good to know.
Questions? So extenuating circumstances might be that we're a clean air agency and we don't want people driving and emitting carbon to go to a meeting.
No, I think that's more of a routine circumstance. But
okay.
it really comes down to the discretion of the board. If you can convince a majority of the board that that's an extenuating circumstance, maybe it is for Greg, but not for Ty because of the distance. I don't know. But that,
Well, I think
that would be something I think that the board has to consider and determine on its own.
Okay. Well, I think that would be a good conversation to have as we come out the end of COVID. You know, we our mission and our travel don't necessarily align, and so I feel like we've been doing a really good job on Zoom. But let's get through all of this and then have that discussion if that's okay with everyone.
And you certainly could amend the bylaws if you decide that you want to encourage that. I think one of the questions is going to be, after the governor's proclamation goes away, is the legislature going to look at the Open Public Meetings Act and try to accommodate virtual meetings without a physical component? And that may be something that we see next session.
Good point. Everyone good on that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, so that takes us to the personnel policy reduction in force / furlough policy, and I think we're going to Fran for that.
Yes, so I sent out to everyone some drafts, and originally I was doing just a furlough because we needed, if we needed a furlough, and thank heavens to date we have not. In order for Association of Washington Cities to be able to continue to allow us to provide health benefits at at the same rate that we are now, excuse me, we needed to have the furlough policy as part of our PMP manual. The board asked me to go further, and so what I tried to lay out was not only furlough, but a series of policies that would potentially be in our PMP manual that are reduction in force resulting from either a revenue shortfall or a workload reduction, because it could be either or both. I don't know how much you want me to walk through it with you or address questions. I just will also say that you'll see in my draft, I talk about a shared work program, and that in order to be able to, under the first heading of partial employment, it talks about we would have to apply for the shared work program and get approval from the commissioner of its Department of Employment, ESD, in order to be able to have that. And if that were the case and we were allowed to have the shared work program, that would allow us to continue again to be able to provide health benefits that we would cover, again based upon how many hours people work. But the option would reduce hours up to 50%. And affected employees may collect that if your hours were reduced 50%, you could still collect partial unemployment to replace the portion of wages that you're lost from ORCAA, but you would also get your health benefits. So that's an extra piece, and that was passed by the legislature. So that's in there for now for COVID, but I decided to stick it in just so that it's there in case we ever need it in the future. So there's reduction in hours, there's a permanent or temporary layoff. There's also retirement, and the retirement is again the same retirement that we've had. There's no changes based upon that. It's everybody at ORCAA is either a PERS 2 or PERS 3, and so you base that on the rules for retirement. And then I included a voluntary separation program, and in that that would be one where folks would again, it would be if we needed folks to separate from the agency. There's a process that we need to go through. It's not something that people just automatically say, I want to go through voluntary separation. It would have to be needed, and then we negotiate some type of a separation agreement. And then of course there's regular resignation. And the other piece for the voluntary separation is if you were going to be fired, you couldn't go to voluntary separation. So that's a different kind of situation. Luckily, that's not our situation. And then there's the furlough policy, which again is where I started, and still, it'd be nice to have the entire package, but I thought I would, send it out to you, get your comments, your feedback, and then depending upon the conversation today, potentially bring it back for September to be adopted in the PMP manual, if at all possible. So I'd like to get it, even though we don't need any portions of it at this point, I'd like to get it adopted at some point. So I'd be happy to answer questions.
So I have a quick question. So has any of this been run by the staff before you brought it to us?
Yes, and our attorneys.
Okay.
Were the staff comments towards the positive?
I ran it by, actually, run by the
Managers.
managers have run, and they made changes in it. And so I've included the managers' changes.
Okay.
And verbally talked about it with the staff, but they haven't actually seen the full documents.
Others?
My only comment is the county, before I was a commissioner, did the voluntary furlough program where they allowed, at the time, employees to collect a certain amount of unemployment. And what happened to our unemployment insurance is it went from about $50,000 to $60,000 a year up to about $450,000 a year. So
Wow.
long term, there's no savings, but it's something definitely to look at in that policy.
Good point.
And for the voluntary separation program, we would have to initiate it. An employee can't say, "I'd like to voluntarily separate." It doesn't happen that way.
Do you include a voluntary furlough in there?
No, I didn't include voluntary furlough. I just included just plain old furlough. If somebody wanted to reduce their hours,
Yeah.
we could do it on a temporary reduction of hours. So we could do
Okay.
it that way.
And that I read that as within your power anyway, based on
Right.
this
Yeah.
and the current policies. Okay.
Yes.
Other questions?
I have one employee whose kids are going to be doing school totally remotely, and she's 35 hours now. And when I was talking to her yesterday, I said, if you need to reduce your hours to help with your kids, we can always work that out too. So yeah.
Nothing popped out as I read through this for me, other than the fact that if others are, the managers, et cetera, are comfortable with it. Hopefully we don't have to do most of this, because you don't have enough employees to have that happen, frankly.
If you're ready for rain, it won't rain, Cynthia.
No, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so are folks agreeable? Oh, Greg, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to give my support. I thought it looked great. So I'm behind it. Work fan.
So everybody okay then with just asking staff to bring it back in the personnel policy manual next month?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Okay, and I'm
Okay.
going to do the next one also.
Okay. Yeah, Fran's filling in for Robert today throughout. So anytime I'm about to say Robert, it's Fran.
Right. Robert is out doing an inspection on our newest AOP, Grace Harbor Energy. So it was a 2-day inspection. It was yesterday and today. So he's out there. So what you have before you is something we bring to you every year, and we have to amend Rule 1.11 in our rules to be consistent with federal regulations. So we update our reference date rule once a year, and so. What we're asking you right now is we're asking to have you to approve a motion to file our CR 102 with the state code revisor amending ORCAA Rule 1.11. And basically what it does is it changes the date from July 1, 2019 to July 1, 2020, so that we are then consistent with all federal regulations as of July 1, 2020. The other years we've been late. We're trying to do this as right after the July date. Board meeting every year. But we need to go and would come back to you for a public hearing in October.
So I would like to move that we approve Rule 1.11 federal regulation reference state rule change.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any discussion?
A lot to discuss on this one.
All in favor, say aye.
Really?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
Thank
Fran,
you.
go file the 102. And I just have a question about this. So and maybe this is for Jeff, could we not write a sentence that says on July 31st of every year, that 1 year will be added to the year in that date so that we don't have to do this a month and a half after the end of the year? Or a half a month, I'm sorry.
I think that you have to do it contemporaneously, because you can't adopt something that is in the future. I mean, you could theoretically authorize staff to proceed with the rulemaking each year to keep them current, but you still have to go through the public hearing process on the CR 102.
Okay. But we could kick off that 102 in July, so it's done on time, even in June.
Yes.
Okay.
And basically, we're just complying with anything that EPA has for reference.
Cool. I got that.
To date on their rules.
Okay. Thank you very much. Easy enough. Okay, so that takes us to the compliance report, which will be Fran.
Right. Okay. So you have the compliance report in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on any of it. I mean, you can see that staff have been out, even though we've had COVID, they've been out doing inspections. They've been out dealing with complaints for outdoor burning. And now, thank heavens, a lot of the outdoor burning complaints are going away because all 6 counties are in a fire safety burn ban. But people still are burning, and staff are out there. So they're being very careful, because I want to make sure that as they do inspections and when they're out on a complaint, that they're staying healthy and doing the right thing. So, because I don't want anybody getting sick. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There's nothing that's really exciting on any of these. But again, if you have questions, I'll try to answer them. And as you can see, our asbestos permit report is pretty lengthy, so people are doing asbestos and demos.
I had one question. I've asked about Treehawk Farms before, a marijuana producer in Jefferson County, and I recognize that they are in an ag zone land and it's an appropriate use. So I guess I'm just wondering what kind of response ORCAA makes when someone's complaining about something that is a defendable smell. I mean, do you say they can do it, but we will take the report?
So again, if we get a complaint about an odor complaint, we go out and it's hard up in Clallam and Jefferson because it's so far away. And as you know, the odors are transient and they move based upon wind, etc. So we do try to get out, and we do try to work, even though at this point we're not registering them, but we still have to respond to odor complaints. And so we'll try to work with the entity to talk about what's causing the odor. Is it, they need to clean their filters if it's an indoor facility? Is it harvest time? Is there an explanation for why there's an odor? So we do respond to all odor complaints from marijuana grows.
Thanks.
So, this is a question I've never asked, but do you find, or have you done any kind of summary of those that are continuous people that come up all the time, so that they're the ones that are always breaking, not doing what's needed?
Actually, the one that was our biggest offender is gone. That was Justin Wildhaber, and he closed, and he's doing something on the East Coast now. So for the most part, and we had one actually in Lacey, but that we had continuous, this has been a few years ago, but they upgraded their filter system, and since they've upgraded the filter system, we haven't had any complaints. So, what we try to do is talk to the folks to find out what's actually going on and try to help them figure out how to reduce the odors if there are. This summer, I've had complaints, I forget the name of the grow, it's near Aberdeen, Hoquiam area. And we've been out a couple times and tried to, again, trying to work with the grower to figure out what's going on. But we haven't really had any recently, we haven't had any consistent major problems.
Okay. Well, I just noticed that Lacey had popped up a number of times, and some of the names look familiar, but yeah. So, but I don't know if it was several in a row or whether it was several, 2 or 3 weeks apart or what, but I was just curious.
Are you referring to one in the report?
Well, yeah, but it's not a big deal. It's just I was curious if there were continuous complaints about a certain person or party or whatever it is.
Are you talking about marijuana or just in general?
In general.
Oh, I see. For a while, we were having a number of complaints from some sisters. Was that in Lacey? I'm trying to think where that was. Because they were complaining about people burning around them, and actually we had Allie go out on a night and weekends to try to figure out what was going on. But those have even calmed down since we've got the burn ban in place. So when, we do, again, especially with burns, when they're odor or fire, illegal, if they're burning garbage or whatever, we do try to get out there, and people say, well, they know that you're only open, 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So they burn at night and on weekends. And we have, in those kind of cases, sent staff out after hours to try to figure out what's going on.
Ah, okay.
So, Fran, on the complaint report, is it just when people call in and give, a lot of them just have first names as the source, like Lisa? It's just because that's what they know of their neighbor or something. Person's name is Lisa and she's burning or something, or Toby or whatever the situation is.
We try to get as much information as we can. Sometimes people can't, they're not sure which neighbor it is. Or we have a situation, for instance, in Shelton where we've got gates up and so we can't get to the people. So Dan we did a flyer that we thought we'd send out, but it was a problem with the postage. So we're sending targeted mailers to a particular area to try to focus in on that area. So we'll always follow up, if we get complaints in number of ways. We get online complaints, we get phone messages, we get complaints through people call Ecology and then send them on to us. So compliance staff will return the call to whoever called us to try to get as much information as possible. And then they will actually physically, if they can figure out what's going on, go out to that area and try to find it that way too. But sometimes people don't know the name of the person, they just know sort of where the house is or where the area is. So we don't always get good information.
I love the one where it says the neighbor smokes cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the odor complaint from the crematory, or the smoke complaint from the crematory.
Yeah, we have had problems. And actually, the smoke complaint for Forest Funeral and Crematory, they're actually going through a notice of construction to amend so they can actually, because right now there are certain hours where they can cremate, and they want to be able to cremate at night, but that they have to modify their permit to be able to do that. So they're actually going through permit modification right now.
Good questions. Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to the air quality update from Odell.
Hi, I am going to share my screen with you so that you guys can see the air quality, and hopefully you can see that. Can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is covering June and July. So some things are happening this summer. We're actually finally able to get back out to sites, etc. And so for June, you can see we had almost a complete data set. We did lose almost half the month in Port Townsend. That was because the data logger died. Nick went up, he just thought it needed to be reset, and it was actually just dead, and then we had to get a new one from Ecology. So we did lose quite a bit of data in June in Port Townsend. The only other data loss was at Chesapeake, and that was just because of a power outage, which happens up there. And as you can see, the numbers are low and nothing of note. July, similar events. We had almost a complete data set at all the sites. Again, Port Townsend, we did lose one data a couple of days of data, and that was just that the logger had another fault. That was the new one that we had just installed, and Ecology had to go in and fix that. And Shelton, we also lost several days of data, and we actually upgraded that data logger. So I'm just going to throw the Department of Ecology under the bus because they're the ones that supply our data loggers, and this was all their fault. Maybe not, but yeah. And they were happy and did help us fix those. You'll also notice that our maximum daily values are pretty high in July, and I'm sure you can all guess that all of those maximum daily values occurred on the same day, which is July 5th. Aberdeen coming out as the big winner, so I thought I would just explore that a tiny bit more, just, you know, because I love to city shame Wes. So first place goes to Aberdeen, where it peaked at an hourly average of 203 micrograms per meter cubed. Raymond was a distant second at 61, and Lacey finished third at 28 for the highest hourly peak. Wes, I did look to see if maybe somebody's house caught on fire near there, because even for fireworks, that's pretty high. I couldn't find anything, but and I did notice that Aberdeen has a fireworks ban. Yes. For the city, so I'm not sure what was happening over there, but something pretty interesting. So that was our July numbers for July 4th. We finished the Mason County saturation study. So in the first week of July, I finally got out and took down all of our purple air monitors. So June was our last month of continuous collection, and you can see all of the monitors were measuring very similar concentrations. That scale is pretty zoomed in, so between 2 and 5 micrograms per meter cubed, which is almost within the noise of our primary monitors, so not a lot of variability there. I did leave up the purple air monitor that is co-located with the nephelometer represented by the NPM25, and the plan now is to start putting the purple air monitors out with our other sensors so that we can start providing support to the public network for how to correct that data, and using and outsourcing the public monitors to supplement our saturation studies. So after looking at the budget, we're going to hopefully purchase a few new purple airs to put out in Grays Harbor, which is next for the saturation study, and then also use the ones that are already existing there through the public. So I'll probably hold off on that a little bit for right now, just because access is difficult, and I want to get a handle on the data from the Mason County study, but I will keep you guys posted on how that goes. We are collecting ozone over the summer. So this is the June ozone in Lacey and in Yelm. You can see that ozone is pretty consistent with a very strong daily cycle, ups and downs. The peak of ozone is about 4 p.m. every day when the sun is the highest. Sometimes you'll see these lower peaks that would indicate a cloudy day or rainy day when ozone is low. So when you see these clear peaks, it's indicative of nice sunny weather. So July, again, see the same thing. I threw in the Chesapeake ozone data in the July just to show you that there's this background that kind of controls the baseline of ozone, and then the high and low peaks are regional. And then the highest peaks are coincident with our temperature. So up here is our daily temperature, and you can see how sunshine and temperature really affect those ozone concentrations. That said, we're nowhere near the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for ozone, so not too much to worry about. Even when we get above 80, 90 degrees, we're still not reaching that, so that's good. So I want to mention this is EPA has started an air sensor pilot project, and they're using the purple air sensors. Last time we met, I mentioned that I was the new technical chair for the Northwest AirQuest Consortium for setting up that meeting. And so this was something that was discussed at our June meeting extensively. A lot of people had concerns about using the purple air data and applying a correction factor across the country. So EPA addressed that. this map, I don't know if I can click on it and if that will work, will take you to EPA's pilot study. You guys have that in your packet, so if you're interested in looking at that, oh, it hasn't gone live yet. So right now it's still password protected. Okay, that's fine. But they are, any day now, they are planning on going live. And so we will be investigating this further and how that's working with communicating. So our main concerns are communicating with the public, and we know that there are issues with the purple air quality data and how that relates to our air monitors. And so we had concerns that it could be confusing for members of the public. So EPA is trying to address that on the page. But yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on how that works. It might be a non-issue. Maybe the public won't even contact us about it. So that is something that is happening. And so other monitoring news. So I made a
quick question, Odell.
Sure.
Can, because this is online and I haven't downloaded, can you send us that link when it gets up and running?
Yeah. So right now I have access to it. I have the username and password, but I'm not supposed to give that out yet until they actually go live. And I put it on here last week because I was thinking that it probably would have been activated by now, but apparently there's still some issues that they're having before they can launch to the public at large. But as soon as that happens, I will let you know, and you should be able to just click on it without a username or password.
Thank you.
Okay, so accessing Chesapeake has been a little bit challenging. I have to get permission from ORCAA. I can't stop anywhere on the reservation, and I can't stay the night. So that has been fun to do. I also, early on in the month, there was nowhere to use the restroom on the way up or back, which was super fun. All of the public restrooms were closed. So yeah, air monitoring in the time of COVID has presented lots of fun challenges for all of us. But I have been up to Chesapeake, and it's actually working pretty smoothly. And I have to say that watching the ORCAA evolve their roadblock through the last 5 months, it's pretty fancy now. It's pretty permanent and pretty fancy. So that's been kind of interesting. We were able to access Port Angeles, had some issues there. And then I mentioned the Port Townsend data logger. And of course that requires planning to access the schools, which are all closed as well. Big project I'm working on is the final report to EPA on our community toxics project. I've been working with students on that and finalizing the data. Sometime when we have maybe a shorter meeting, I can give you a presentation of the main findings from that study. I'll work with Debbie and Fran to schedule that. I already mentioned that we removed the purple air sensors from Mason County. Oh, and we are working with Ecology on an ethylene oxide pilot study in Lacey and Raymond, Washington. So they have chosen 3 sites for their pilot study, and 2 of them are ours. So we'll be working with them on that, which is kind of exciting. And we should have the CO, well, I thought I fixed and reinstalled the CO monitor at Mountain View and Lacey, but then the fan died. So I should have edited this before I presented. So this CO monitor is not working at Lacey. And that is all I have for you guys today.
So I was writing when you said this, so I didn't get it. When you said you're working with Ecology on ETO pilot study, what's the ETO again?
ETO is ethylene oxide, and it's just a pollutant that EPA revised their reference concentration for. And during our toxic study and the toxic site up in Seattle, we didn't know that they were going to do this, but EPA asked ERG to start analyzing all the samples for ethylene oxide, and we did pick up some concentrations in our ambient air. And so it's just a new pollutant that is more toxic than was previously assessed. And so Ecology wants to do a study in urban and rural background areas to see if we have issues with ETO that we need to be concerned about and whether or not that's something that we need to expand on. And if that happens, it would happen on a state level. It wouldn't be something that ORCAA would be directly responsible for. And it may even be an EPA issue, federal issue. So, you know, we're just helping facilitate, and they are using our sites. So I thought it was of interest to you guys.
Well, Dale, you might mention that, that one of the places that you find ETO is in sterilizers and.
Yeah, so the sources of ETO used to be, well, they are major hospitals or medical facilities. They use ETO to sterilize any medical equipment that cannot be exposed to heat. So anything that's a sterilizer is probably going to be pretty toxic. But I don't think we have one or two registered sources for ETO. But there's not very many registered. So part of the project is to find out who's the source and what controls they're using. The other source of ETO is possibly asphalt when they're paving, can emit some. And then the other one is it's also used as a preservative when they're transporting spices and certain goods across the ocean in the big ships. But I don't know, by the time the shipment arrives here, I don't know how much ETO that actually emits into the atmosphere. There's a lot we don't know about this. So this is a new pollutant of interest. It's sort of just up and coming, and we're just starting to look at it. So I don't have a lot of information about it.
Does it ripen fruit, this ethylene oxide, like ethylene does?
No, it's not the same.
Good questions. Anything else for Odell? Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to Dan with education and outreach.
So we'll be brief. Fran mentioned on the wood stove grant, we are, I'm actually just finalizing the amendment on that so that we can acquire an additional $35,000 from the state. I'm meeting with Dave Grant from Ecology later this afternoon to finish off those amendment tweaks and get that ready for signature so we can get that money rolling in. That program's been really strong. It looks like right now I've allocated all of the funds that we initially had for Thurston County. Mason and Clallam are a little slower in spending down the funds. So part of the amendment is actually going to be combining all the funds into a regional. I just lost my screen. Hopefully you can still hear me.
Yes.
We can see you too.
Okay, so we'll combine a regional pool instead of breaking out the 3 counties separately so that we make sure that all of the funds allocated to ORCAA actually get spent. If not specifically in Mason County, we'll get them distributed through Thurston and Clallam, or Clallam's may be spent in Mason, depends on how projects go. But right now we're well over 100 or well over 50% of the available funds have been spent. And that's for the first year of the 2-year cycle. So we're well on track to spend not only what we have in hand, but also the additional $35,000. On the outreach side, outdoor burning, as Fran mentioned, the complaints are starting to slow down. We're still seeing some. I'm working with compliance. I included one flyer that we sent out to Pacific County, and we reuse that with some tweaks for Mason County for targeted locations where trash burning continues to be an ongoing problem even during burn bans. The good news is, looking at our web numbers, the analytics show our outdoor burning pages remain the top hits for our website, but 40% of all the hits on our website. And we've got about 27,000 visits over the last 3 weeks. So most people, or about 40% of the people, are going to our outdoor burning pages. Asbestos and demolition are also really popular pages. So that shows people are doing projects, and as mentioned in the finance committee, people are spending money at Home Depots and Lowe's. Personally, I can attest to that. I think I've accounted for, I think Jim said you had a 9% increase in sales tax. I think I'm probably about 5% of that for Thurston County. I don't know if I mentioned in the previous meeting, I am now officially a Thurston County resident. Moved out of Puyallup after 28 years in the same house.
Wow.
Bought a place in just off of Yorkshire and the Meridian Street east of Lacey. So I'm a Thurston County resident and taxpayer, and have spent a lot of time and money in Home Depot and Lowe's. So I'm supporting the local economy. And Jim, good news for you in your upcoming changes. We listed our home last Thursday in Puyallup finally, and accepted an offer less than 24 hours later. That was substantially over list price.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Wild market. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Any questions for Dan? Well, hopefully you left your burn barrel in Puyallup. That's just a joke.
Did that. Already talked to some neighbors down here about the legalities of some of the piles I see in the pastures. So.
Okay, that takes us to finance and administration from Lynn.
Well, good morning, all. I'm over here on your, let's see, well, maybe it's my right screen, maybe not your left, but morning, all. So, a brief recap of the fiscal year 2020 financial report. So that ends June 30th, 2020 with good, positive news. The Finance Committee and staff here discussed almost by line item each revenue line. I'll highlight a few of the revenue lines. With the $2.4 million budget, we exceeded that in revenue, and the couple of the lines would be the NOC major and minor that Mark Gooden, our professional engineer, discussed briefly earlier. We brought in about $25,000 over budget in that line item. That a lot had to do with the activity in our 6-county region and the sources making changes to their equipment and industry. So that's good news. Things have not slowed down, is what we are seeing here in our 6 counties. Our annual registration, we exceeded that by over 4% or 16,000. According to Deb, a lot of that had to do with some extra fees that were assessed on late payments from our sources. Debbie works really well with those sources that are that were making payments. And for our asbestos, we were slightly under, but we definitely made up for it with the land clearing, unfortunately. I mean, it sounds positive, but on a budget side, we exceeded our $15,000 land clearing budget by double, bringing in over $16,000 in excess of the budgeted line. And our grants, we made out and collected all of our wood smoke grant money, wood education, the PM 2.5, Chica Peak, community air toxics, and both of our 4 core grants. The FSEC, which is nice to hear, some good news is that after many years, the AOP has been issued for that particular site in Grays Harbor. That's the gas-powered facility in Grays Harbor County. So that's really good news. Mark Good was able to put his signature stamp on that permit last month. For fines, we did exceed our estimated budget of $55,000 by over $11,000. For our investment income, I have previously provided kudos to Ty, Thurston County, his staff in the treasurer's office who worked very well with investing our residual funds in our bank account. So again, thank you, Ty. For our building income, we're on target there. And good news, again, we're not using any of our contingency reserve to balance our budget. In fact, we're bringing in $66,000, or 62, excuse me, and that will be transferred into our general fund. So good news there. You know, there's a lot more information here on the financial report that wasn't previously, and a comparison to our 2019 by percentage, what was brought in fiscal year 2019 versus 2020. Some interesting numbers, good numbers. In fact, quite a few of them, as Jim Cooper had mentioned earlier in the finance, they're actually over the 2019 numbers. We'll definitely be keeping a close eye on our 2021 figures. That's our revenue. Any questions on revenue before moving to expenditures? Great, okay, so for our expenditures, we were slightly under, which is good. We're slightly under 99% in expenditures. So the salaries line, we were on our salaries and benefits slightly under by 45,000. For a non-payroll, we were slightly under by 67,000. Our capital and building expense line slightly under by 8,400. Made our debt service payment, maintained our monitoring services, utilities came slightly under, you know, fewer tenants here, fewer staff, less utilities, less usage. For our operational, we did exceed that subcategory by about 25,000, but the bulk of that was in the program, the Wood Smoke Reduction Bounty Program that Dan oversees. And so we had some good activity in that program. So that $35,000 amendment that Dan is working with Ecology on is definitely something that we can utilize and help distribute in our couple counties that it is applicable to. So that leaves us with the $62,000 that will be transferring into our general fund. Again, good news. Any questions? Fran or Debbie, you have anything you want to add to the finance report? Okay.
Good job, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm happy to move to the fund balance sheet, page 2. We started the year July 1, 2019 with $1,658,000 and ended June 30, 2020 with $1,721,000. Again, good news. We did have a lot of workload activity in the Title V program. We thought we were going to transfer 32,000 of the revenue collected in fiscal year 2020 to our reserve, or excuse me, our contingency fund. But because of the high workload, we did have an audit that occurred, that there was additional workload. We got a couple more permits out the door that left us with overspending in that particular program, but that's what the contingency is for, is there in case we need it or don't. And in this case, we needed it. I think it's been 1 year, golly, in the last 7 years that we exceeded the Title V budget. So, so our budgeting practices are working. Following is the fund balance allocations for all the contingencies, emergency contingency, the Title V, security deposits, and then the board identified keeping contingency funds for our office building, monitoring, database. And I will note that the vacation sick leave balance did go up by about 60,000. That's because staff has not taken any vacation or staycations, but that'll be changing soon. So that leaves us with a little over $1 million in unreserved fund balance. Again, that's a good news to share with y'all. Any questions on our financial reporting? Must be everyone's on mute, huh?
I like Ray.
Great. So just a couple things. You know, the wellness committee, it's a little dicey to work remotely, but I'm definitely sending out regular emails reminding folks Benefits are there for you. Use them, take them, call up your doctor. They're still available. The EAP, the the Employee Assistance Program is there if you need any concerns, issues. They're there for you. Anything under the sun, all confidential. Taking those movement breaks is so important for the body, mind, and physical. You don't have to exercise, just move. Good point. And then our building tenants, we still have 8 of our 9 tenants, and we're still advertising for that one office space. So maybe an attorney wants to move over here closer to us. We have a vacancy. It's a lovely one person office, 2nd floor, quiet. Let's see. Our rents are coming in. I maintain really close communications with our tenants, courtesy reminders of our annual inspections, and also hyperlinking some areas for tenants to look at for their responsiveness to their clients and how it's affecting us in the COVID world, because they're required to have their clients masked in and out of this building, walking in common areas. So I'm just doing it as a courtesy, and they're following suit, and I think it helps. Fran does the communications with staff here. I do it with our tenants, and it's working out quite well. Golly, other than that, just been busy year end, attending a lot of webinars and doing what I can. That's all I have to report, unless there's any questions. Why, thank you.
Great. Good stuff. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, that takes us to the Executive Director's report. Fran.
So one of the things, we hired Marcos he's a cleaning group about a year ago now, and September 1, yeah. And he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, he cleans with the cleaning supplies that we needed for COVID, and he's very responsive. His agreement comes due in September, and I'll be renewing that. He's fabulous, and he's extremely responsive, and he's able to clean here on the weekends when he tries to work around our tenants. So that, and I absolutely zero complaints. So we're really, really pleased with his work and his work product. So in terms of staff, as you can see, most staff are still working remotely. My sense is at this point, I don't expect that to change until we have a vaccine. What I've said to staff is productivity is really critical. So on occasion, staff will come in to do things, but it's on occasion. There's just a core group of us that are here. We wear masks all the time, except as the governor says, unless we're drinking or eating. People are being really good about, complying with everything that's been asked of them. So I'm hoping that we have a vaccine that's tested and usable. Obviously, we know that first responders and people with underlying conditions will get the vaccine first. So I'm thinking that we may be working under these conditions until the spring, but I just don't know. And, in terms of working with the board, I wish I could have you all here, but again, I think that using Zoom has been workable. And I would assume that we would stay in this mode probably until everybody's been able to get a vaccine.
Can we lease that room you're in then?
Can you lease it? No, we use it. We use it for our webinars.
We can talk, Jim. We'll talk.
So anyway, and so far, and the question came up during finance, how are staff doing? Everybody, knock on wood, is healthy. We haven't had anybody with COVID, or as far as we know, there haven't been any family members that have been impacted. So we're hoping that track record continues, and we just want everybody to be very careful. The other thing is, it just was interesting. On Monday morning when the mail came, Debbie sent out the registration, invoices on the 1st of August. And the mail person came on Monday with a stack like this. We got 63 checks on Monday for registration. Now, the majority of them were the $268 ones, but we are getting, people are sending in, their registration money, which is a good sign. Because again, I just don't have a real good feel for how this year is going to go. We're just taking it day by day, month by month. And as I say, I'm just asking staff to be good stewards of their time and to be productive. So we're trying to, we meet, we use Teams to meet and to talk. It's not as efficient, I have to say, as having staff here, but it's the best we can do. And again, people are working hard, and I appreciate that. People are taking some vacation, not like they normally do, but they're taking some long weekends, and they're doing what they can. And we do, as Lynn says, we are emphasizing that during this period of time, mental health is really important. And so if you can exercise, I mean, I've been walking 5.5 miles before I come to work in the morning. I need that to clean out my mind and get my thoughts going before I come to work. And so it's important for people to access resources if they need support, if they need help. But physical and mental health are really, really important during these times. So we're really, trying to hopefully help people to see the need for that. I think other than that, we're doing okay, and we'll continue going down this path and try to do business as best we can. And hopefully we have citizens that are supportive. We have signs outside because we're not letting the staff, or not staff, we're not letting citizens public into our building. But everybody's been good, and because we've got such a good system, most things can be done online, which is really great. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
You said 5.5 miles you walk every day?
Well, now I do, yes. I've been doing that since this started. But now I've got, since my gym is open, and I've been on them about making sure that they're doing the right thing in terms of wearing masks and physical. So now, just starting last week, I've been going to the gym Tuesday, Thursday morning for 1.5 hours and working out, lifting weights and doing that kind of stuff. So now Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I walk 5.5 miles. And then Saturday, Sunday, we walk our dog and do about 4 or 5 miles with the dog. But then Tuesday, Thursday, it's elliptical and lifting weights. So yeah, but it's really important. It gives me the energy that I need, and my staff probably hate it because I come in with all kinds of thoughts that I have about what's going to happen during the day and issues that I've come up with. Because when you're walking, you can think, so.
Movement is so important, all.
So yeah, 5.5 miles.
No matter how you do it.
Takes me an hour and 15 minutes to do 5.5 miles. I can't run anymore because I need these new knees to last me forever. So.
I said the other day to somebody that I was communicating with on my cell phone, I said, oh, I have to stop now and go, I have to run and go walk. Because but I had to correct, I said, I'm not running, I'm just walking.
That's really funny. Great. Well, way to set a good example for us all, Fran.
My orthopedic surgeon says that these knees should last me 20 to 25 years. I plan on living longer than that, so I need to be careful.
Take care of them, yeah.
I don't want a new set.
Okay, any other questions for Fran? Wonderful. Anything for the good of the order?
I had one thing.
Go ahead, Greg.
I'm not sure if this has come up before, but I'm just interested about biochar and interested in ORCAA's, I guess, ability to incentivize burning and use biochar as an option for fuel burns, and wondering if that's been investigated at all as a possibly an effective tool in really reducing that carbon getting into the atmosphere.
There has been some conversation about doing some biochar modeling or testing. And I don't know that any of so there's been communication with us a couple of times, and actually Mark would know whether any of it has actually happened. But we are interested, and there's been some talk about it, and it is potentially a way to deal, with burning, using it so that you're not creating more emissions. But I don't know that anything has actually come to fruition at this point for testing it.
Okay, testing it, you mean testing the effectiveness, or developing a methodology that would be easy to incentivize for people doing land clearing burns?
Yeah, to looking at the technology. I know that we do not, there's one technology that we absolutely do not think is a good idea, and that is, God, it's for burning, but it's, trying to think what it is. It's not biochar, it is, what's the thing that it was in Spokane?
Are you thinking of the gasification?
No, the curtain? Yeah, air curtain incinerator.
Air curtain, yeah, totally.
That's a no, that's not gonna happen. That would actually cause, you'd have to go for Title V to be able to do that.
I think there's low-cost options. I mean, we could develop a methodology that takes no technology except just kind of smothering your fire, and it would prevent smoke and sequester half that carbon and create a very productive byproduct.
Yeah, as I say, there's been some talk of some test cases, and I'm not sure that any of it has gone very far. But I know we've communicated with folks about it, and I can talk to Mark and get back to you on any specifics.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay, sure.
Great. Anything else? Wes, you unmuted. Are you just going to get ready to say goodbye, or did you have something?
Get ready to say goodbye to everyone.
Okay, wonderful. We have no executive session, so we are adjourned. Everyone,
Bye-bye,
take care.
everyone.
See you all next month.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, Jeff,